Alright, YouTube, I am back for part 2 of my, I guess you could say, riffing on oracles. So in this video, so the last video sort of introduced the oracle method that I like to use, which is combining oracle and tarot. This video is going to be about the oracle decks that I find to be most useful for that method. Because, like I said in the last video, not all oracles are created equal in my mind. And I know that she's super popular, but I really don't like Doreen Virtue. I mean, she's probably a very nice person, but I don't really like her systems that she creates, partially because I don't really feel like they are cohesive systems. And that's what I think is the most important thing to have for this method that I'm talking about. The oracle decks that you employ in order to generate random spreads and to do questionless readings have to be fairly comprehensive systems. They need to be sort of self-sufficient. They need to function on their own. And this is because if you're going to be using these to create a spread, and the spread has to be able to address whatever happens to be important right now, because you're not having a question, you're not designing a spread, you're letting the oracle create the spread for you. The more comprehensive the oracle is, meaning the more areas it addresses, and the more cohesive it is, meaning how well it sticks together, I guess you could say, and you'll see what I'm saying in a second, but the better for this system. So the ones that I like to use, so the one I introduced last time was the Victorian Flower Oracle, which I feel to some degree meets both cohesion and comprehensiveness because the language of flowers was a highly developed social practice in Victorian America. Oh, and I guess that's another way of telling if the oracle is sufficient. If it has a lot of cards in it, if the oracle only has, 15 or 16 cards in it, it can't really signify very much. There's only, 15 or 16 different possibilities that can come up for your spread. So the larger the oracle, the better as well. The Victorian Flower Oracle, I can't remember how many cards this one has, something like 40 or 45. But it's comprehensive and it's cohesive because it uses this notion of flower language, and I just think the keywords can address a lot of different things that are going on in your life. So for example, here we have thistle, which is a threat. What is this one? Wallflower, so shyness, primrose and snowdrop, which are hope, nasturtium, I mispronounced that one, which is sad memories, wild rose, which is a thorny question. So see, these sorts of things like a thorny question or orange flower, memories, these are very broad categories that make for really helpful spread positions. And the number of cards that are in this deck make it useful because it can address a whole lot of different things. So I like using the Victorian Flower Oracle because it is cohesive. And that's, I guess, why, to get back to my point from before, why I don't really like Doreen Virtue is because, to me, when you just say fairies, if you have a fairy deck, or magical mermaids and unicorns, I think is one of hers, to me there's no really cohesive theme there, and so there's no way of sort of delimiting what will show up in the oracle and what will not show up in the oracle. It can just be anything. Whereas Victorian flower language at least limits it to a system itself that is internal and complete on its own. And the other thing is sometimes Doreen Virtue oracles, and I'm using her as just an example, but she's not the only one who does this, sometimes they're very specific in what they say. So things like a threat, is very generic. Friendship, which is tea and coffee. Narcissus, which is vanity, those are very broad, but I have noticed in a lot of oracles they're too specific in the messages that they have, or they even sometimes come with a paragraph, and that kind of limits your own mind and your ability to sort of think what it means to you in the moment. A competition is broad, an admirer is broad, joy is broad, and so those tend to work better. So the Victorian Flower Oracle is one oracle that I find that meets these components. Another one that I like to use, and I also pick these out just because I like the art. At the end of the day, I like them to be cohesive and comprehensive, but I also just like the art. So this is the Ancient Feminine Wisdom of Goddesses and Heroines deck. I avoided this for a long time because I actually didn't think that it was going to be very useful, but like the Victorian Flower Oracle, it is a system. It relies mostly on Greco-Roman myth. So to me, that's the system, which is comprehensive, and it also has 45 cards in it, I believe, and so there's a lot of different options that are available to you. So here we have, and and the backs are really pretty too. But I love the art on this. I believe it's the same artist who did the Celestial Tarot. And so, yeah, they are the same people, Kay Stevenson and Brian Clark. So, and I liked the art on that deck. I just don't agree with its ideology. But anyway, so here we have the charities, and they represent grace, you know, and we have Iris and Rainbow. So here's maybe a confusing thing. What would Rainbow mean in the reading? I have no idea, but maybe it would strike you. Amalthea, or nurturing here. So again, what's useful is that these are comprehensive enough that it makes sense of why they're together. Eos is dawn. Again, that's a confusing one. So what this deck sort of does is throw a wrench in the works, because things like intuition with Cassandra are fairly clear, whereas Eos and dawn is less clear about what the tarot card that shows up there is going to mean. But I do find that its comprehension is adequate for these kinds of readings. And then also, another thing which is helpful that I like about this deck is that the myths themselves, if you know them, like if you know the myth of Cassandra, you know that she can see the future, but no one listens to her. That is the plague, that is the curse of Cassandra. And so that's helpful. I mean, if that can be included as part of the reading beyond just the keyword of intuition, you know that you can sort of read the myth of Cassandra against the tarot card, which shows up in this position as well, as a way of expanding upon the meanings. So I'll show you a couple more. I have no idea to pronounce that one, so we'll skip it. Oxio, or increase. I'm showing you all of my... Metis. I do know Metis, or wisdom here. A highly underappreciated faculty, if you ask me, in this contemporary age, this notion of cunning. Aphrodite is desire, so there are more common goddesses that show up here as well. But again, I like it that the system itself is self-contained. It limits itself just to goddesses and heroines. The art is nice, and it's a thick deck. There's enough cards to give you a lot of variety when you use it to generate a spread, and the keywords are there as well. Of course, there are more traditional systems which can be used, and so there are two which I like to employ. The first is astrology. So this is the Astrological Oracle. It's put out by Loscarville, I believe. It's done in this sort of Art Nouveau style, and this doesn't have any keywords, so if you were to use this kind of oracle, it's still a system in the sense that it's astrology, so it's its own self-contained system with a lot of different ideas that you can draw from it, but there are no keywords. So this is, for example, Aries, but it doesn't say what the qualities of an Aries are, or the qualities of a Taurus, you know, or the qualities of a Gemini here. Oh, I guess there's a little nudity. Or the qualities of Cancer. So if you're going to use this kind of oracle, it would require some foreknowledge of astrology. And this oracle has all of the signs, as well as, wait, there's Pisces, so let's skip. It has the planets, so here we have Pluto, and Uranus, and Neptune, and Saturn, and Jupiter. So it has all the signs and all the planets, and you would use the same sort of function. You would deal out the cards randomly, and then you would read it in relation to the qualities of the sign or the qualities of the planet. So of course this deck is not as thick as the others, because there are just not that many signs and planets in relation to Greek gods and goddesses, but I do find that its cohesion as a system in itself is what's useful about it. So even if it's a little bit thinner than the others, which I like to use, its cohesiveness is what makes it useful. So that's why I like to employ that one, because it is a self-contained system, which a lot of people have put a lot of thought into this idea. So the other one that I like, and this might be a little bit of heresy, but I like to use these rune cards. So the runes, like astrology, are a self-contained system, so they make for a very useful kind of spread generator here, because within the rune cards there are everything. Technically, like astrology, they're supposed to be able to talk about everything. So anyway, I like, and what's funny though is that I use cards. That's why I said they were heresy before, because runes are, you know, when you think of runes, most people think of little rocks with etchings on them and things like that. I don't really like to use anything. I mean, I really am attracted to the idea of cards, and so when I found these, I thought, oh good, I can use this system and I don't have to use rocks. So here we have the Self, Journey. And that's the nice thing that I also like about these cards, is that they use the keywords for the rune meanings as opposed to the actual names of the runes, which are hard to pronounce. I'm not a purist. I'm sorry if you're like runes and you're watching this and you think it's important to know the names. It probably is. But for the purposes of a spread generating machine, which all these oracles do for me, flow, for example, is much easier than whatever this rune is actually called in real life. So again, these are very broad ideas: initiation, joy, and the system itself is self-contained, and the more you know about runes, the more useful it is for you to employ in generating tarot spreads. So that's another one. So rune casting and astrology are both classical systems which are self-contained and comprehensive enough to be used in this kind of spread generating function. And then I've just told you about the rules of my method for the entire video. We're at 10.5 minutes, and now I'm going to break them. The one deck that I like to use that in no way is themed in any kind of comprehensive fashion is the Deck of Shadows oracle cards, and this is more so because it sacrifices comprehension in the sense that there's nothing which holds these things together. There's not there's not a pantheon, or there's not an astrological firmament, or there's no things that relate these ideas beyond what the author thought would be interesting. But what I do like about these cards is that they have multiple keywords on them. So if this whole point of using these oracle decks is to give us some keywords which then become the positions in the spread, this deck is useful because it gives you 3 different keywords. So technically this card is called Cross the Threshold, but the words themselves are distance, and then we have the way, and then we have pledge. So in that sense, if this card came up as your oracle, or as the oracle spread position, you could interpret that position as either distance or the way or pledge. So I think that that's actually really cool for this kind of method and this kind of reading. Here we have obstacles, and then we have synonyms for obstacles. So we have impasse, drama, and challenge. Those are really important ways of thinking about the notion of obstacles that you don't get just from the word obstacles. And the oracle, the person who created this deck, the Deck of Shadows, has even said in his little white book that the images are secondary. They are tangential to the words, and I think that's really interesting because most people who create oracle decks do so for the art, and a lot of tarot purists believe that the images are the most important thing. Otherwise, why not just have a deck of tarot cards with the meanings written on them? The image is what's important. So this deck is actually, what's stressed is the verbal or the discursive. And so here we have rivalry, we have, what is this, parody, argument, and competition. So it's the words which are important. The image can trigger, something on maybe your intuitive level, but it is the words which are being stressed here. So I find it very, very useful for this kind of reading because it opens up the spread positions. It gives them further meaning and further interpretation as opposed to just a single keyword on the oracle card itself. So I'll show you a couple more of these. We have pursuit, race, goal, or chase. We have maturation, so adulthood, savor, or expansion. Refusal, choice, interdiction, worthy. So anyway, I do like this deck. It's the one that I use that I feel is a little bit more Doreen Virtue-y. Not in the sense that, it's far darker probably than some of Doreen Virtue's work, but it's not, there's nothing which holds it together. Nothing holds refusal with transformation, with discovery, with unity. There's no system here. It's just an interesting little deck that I find to be useful. So those are the decks which I like to use. I don't always use this method. Again, it's to be used when you don't have a question to read on. You just kind of want to leave the entire reading up to chance, but you're not just going to rely on the tarot deck itself. This is a way of giving chance-based readings some direction. It's a chance-based spread, which is created on your own. So again, I would stress, if you're going to do this method, choose whatever goes with you. If you like Doreen Virtue, use her oracle. That's fine, or her various oracles. But I do think that it's important for me to have a system that is cohesive, that works with itself, and that is varied. I think there are actually 52 cards in this deck, so it's useful because there's so many different things. Anyway, I'm running out of time, so I hope that you found this method to be useful. Leave me a note if you did, and I will hopefully be posting more regularly than I have been with a couple more of the methods that I like to use. Until then, Have fun with tarot. Bye.